7:05, meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. First announcement tonight, Wednesday, October 3rd. I repeat that Wednesday, October 3rd is the date for the October 30th. What did I say? 3rd?
Yeah, 30th.
Okay. October 30th at 7 p.m. at the there will be an informational meeting, especially for people in the neighborhood of the Pentucket High School, middle school building project. If you live in that area and you have questions regarding the project, this is the time to attend. Where exactly is that going to be?
It's going to be at the high school gymnasium.
Okay.
Or, not the gym. I'm sorry. The cafeteria.
In the high school cafeteria. Okay.
And that's at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday.
Right. On this coming Saturday, November 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there will be the chairs that you all may remember from sitting on comfortably in the at the town hall. These are going to be sold as surplus by the town, and every household will be allowed to, at that time, purchase one set of chairs, one set of two. Or four. Or correct, right. Yeah. On Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. in the annex, there will be the West Newbury special town meeting. There are two very large items on the that are going to be voted for the town related to the card post, and another large purchase to be voted on for replacing kitchen and bathroom equipment repairs in the town housing housing authority project. So both of these are, and everything else, but the people that want to hear their voice heard on these items, absolutely come Monday night. There will be an a cappella night at Pentucket High School Saturday, November 23rd at 7 p.m. Performing, one of the headline performers will be the Northeasters. And as usual, there are still some FY committee appointments that are available. You can go on the West Newbury Board of Selectmen pages to look for those. Without further ado, I'd like Angus to introduce our new staff person, Jennifer Walsh.
Great. Thanks, Chairman. So we're joined tonight by Jennifer Walsh, Jenny Walsh, and we're delighted to have her. We've been short-staffed in the office for extended period of time, and so this is it's a level head count from the same staffing level that we had when I started about a year and a half ago. It's a newly created position. It's kind of a hybrid between some of the work the executive administrator did with the town reports, supporting with the committee reappointments, the public messaging, so the town website, Facebook, social media, press releases, those kinds of things she's going to be very helpful with. But also, and this is really important, on the finance side, there's a very substantial baseline responsibilities, primarily supporting the town accountant with the preparation of the warrants. And that's all part of a puzzle that this board knows well. We've been working on over the last probably 6 months to come up with the right reorganization to give the new town accountant position some more dedicated support on the warrants, to free up that position's time to take on more of the finance responsibilities. So I couldn't be happier to welcome Jenny. She's into her second Monday on the job. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want to say a couple of words?
Thank you.
and I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking forward to learning all the needs of my job. So thank you again for trusting me, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Great. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Last meeting, we put off deciding whether we were going to change any specifics related to Halloween, and the weather, although not predicted to be wonderful this Thursday night, we are going to maintain the usual on Halloween and 5 to 7 p.m. Trick-or-treating time frame. And remember, it's probably going to be wet, so it's probably going to be slippery, and it's going to be dark out there. So you might want to wear light-colored things and have flashlights and stuff per usual. But again, it's not going to be particularly warm, and we feel that with the temperature being in the lower 50s or even into the 40s, that the amount of mosquitoes out at that particular time is not going to be quite as bad as it would be on August. So we're maintaining the same schedule.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah. So, talking to the Board of Health, they have brought it down to moderate. There's a suggestion, obviously, that's still not safe, but mosquitoes don't fly. If it's 55 or lower, and it will be raining, and so it'll be harder for mosquitoes to fly, but we still do warn that to be safe, to make sure that your kids have bug repellent on during trick-or-treating. And, obviously, light colored jackets and flashlights.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Next item, a special event permit request for the Myopia Hunt Club for two events on November 12th and November 19th. Can I have a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
We got the required signatures. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Update on the middle school design and high school design process, and just how things are going. Glenn or Angus, do you want to comment on that?
Proper for Angus.
So it's a really important period of time with regard to the middle high school project. As you know from prior meetings, several times during the design process, I believe it's three times at different stages of design, two different entities estimate where the project is relative to budget, and the two reconcile till they get to an agreed number of where they think the project is. And it's not unexpected. In fact, it would be unusual if that didn't. Well, I don't know about that. It often shows that design is trending above budget, and so that's a trigger to then look at opportunities to reduce or eliminate certain items. So with the reconciliation that took place about 2 weeks ago, the project was trending about a little less than 2% above budget. So that sets off a process of what they refer to as value engineering. So that one example of that, just a hypothetical, would be if the budget was carrying poured concrete sidewalks, you might look at, okay, what would a asphalt sidewalk save you in terms, so those kinds of decisions. So the amount of savings that needs to be gained is about $3.2 million, which sounds like a lot, but it is a $120 million construction project, $146 million total cost. So the value engineering process is underway. The designers are they've actually come up with a list of about 100 items, any combination of which could get to that, get the project back on track with the budget. And so they put those into 4 categories of kind of the low-hanging fruit, all the way up to things that they would not recommend, but they're including to illustrate you could make those choices. So basically, the school building committee, which Glenn and I both sit on, is really the entity that makes those decisions in terms of those trade-offs. So we're coming up on a meeting on November 13th. It's going to be a really important meeting. And the time between now and then, the next 2.5 weeks, there's a lot of information that's been made available. There's more information that will be provided in the near term with that list of roughly 100 changes that could be made. And
Or a combination of.
well, exactly. Certainly. Yeah, it's not all 100. It's some subset of those. So there's going to be a couple of working meetings, including during the day, a week from Wednesday. And that's going to really give the school building committee an opportunity to really dig into the details on this. So I just wanted to, keep the board apprised of that, but also really make sure, everyone's aware this is an important time in the design process. And while there will be 2 more of these cost reconciliations as they get further along toward design, the amount of contingency they carry at each stage goes down, because the further they are into the design, the fewer variables there are.
Is there, at this point, is there any, I don't know, say there's something that costs $75,000. Is there any point that the committee would dip into the contingency funds to accommodate that $75,000?
Yes, and that's
how much is in the contingency? Is it about 10% or something like that?
so.
But isn't that a little early for that, Angus?
I'm just asking about how that works.
There isn't enough in there to 70. I don't think to make anything substantial.
If it was 10%, it'd be $12 million.
So the design and pricing contingency started at 10%, but once they get into design development, which is where we're getting now, that goes down to 5%.
5% of the total?
Of the total 118.5, so not the 146.
Okay, so that's
Just under $6 million then.
that's $6 million, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So about 100 value engineering items from most beneficial, acceptable, not preferred, and undesirable. So that so some working meetings coming up, and then on the evening of November 13th.
The working meeting for definitions is the working group.
Mm-hmm.
It's the working group that has those working meetings, and then they work out all the nuts and bolts, and then they bring it back to the larger committee.
Yep. So I can tell you, they have not provided all of the details to the building committee yet, but at the last meeting last week, they did say that they felt, and when I say they, I'm saying basically a combination of the superintendent, the principal, the facilities manager at Pentucket, and the designers themselves feel that to get that amount of value engineering is going to be largely things that people won't really miss. Mm-hmm. So one example that I can use that's an actual example is the budget carried, in the gymnasium, you would have those pads up against the walls, which in some instances are required by code, but because the walls are further away from the actual courts than code requires, you don't have to have those mats. And so that was a fairly modest savings, but it was five figures. I forget the number, but it was some tens of thousands of them. So those are some of the, there was another example that was actually a pretty big ticket item that was some insulation underneath the flooring of the gymnasium, which is no longer required by building code, that they feel they can get rid of for, without anyone noticing. So,
Mr. Chairman, this might be a good time to, maybe for a future agenda item, or to get the word out, that one of the members, representatives from West Newbury, has now moved out of town.
An at-large member from
Yep.
the public. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it would behoove us to get that filled as soon as possible to get full representation for West Newbury. And there is I don't know if it's an arduous process, but there is a process in place where you.
It can't happen overnight, so
No,
the sooner
and
we
the-
do it, the better.
Yeah, it has to go into the state. There's a whole process.
The,
So-
SBA has to like vet the person actually.
Mhm. Yes.
Correct.
Joe Teresi, he's moved out of town, sold his house. So if we could put out on our website and any avenue that we need a member. I don't know.
And preferably someone with some facility in the construction area.
Because that would be the hole that's
desirable. Yeah.
missing. But reach out to that Pentucket, Way Up Pentucket group. They have a great network of people and ask them to spread the word. That's what we're looking for. Might be an easier way of getting the word out fast.
Yeah, and if they express interest, contact the town manager.
Yep.
Good. And there's actually there's a link right from the website, from the homepage on the website. It says volunteer, and that'll bring you right to the form that people can fill out for committee appointments, or they can just give us a call or send us a note.
Is
Yeah.
that one there, Angus?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
It's not. I haven't put that on the website yet, but the form itself is there, and
Okay.
we'll put that on the website tomorrow.
This is an important thing. I don't want to rush it, but if I don't know, we can't appoint somebody as fast as November 4th. We are going to have a scheduled meeting because these meetings are going to mean something now.
Mhm.
Maybe they could attend, but they couldn't vote. I don't know.
I don't know what the exact process is, but I know it's.
It does have to
can we
go
f-
through the state to come
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
Angus, could you get the information from, I guess, Mr. Seymour, Principal Seymour, or the superintendent, and ask him what that process is? So hypothetically, if we did,
Well, Angus had to do it when he.
yeah,
I did, but my sense is Greg LeBrecq had basically teed up all the paperwork and got it all done. So he
Yeah.
made it very painless, but I think that's.
but I mean, if we appoint somebody on,
Mm.
oh, he's good. No, I knew you upstairs, gentlemen, on that side of the building, right in the middle of the building. So if you walk that way, you take a stairway up, go up, it's on your right-hand side.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Actually, you can follow that person. If we appoint somebody, hypothetically, I'm not saying we're going to do it on November 4th. How fast does that happen? So if we appoint them here, can they start voting at that November 13th meeting, so to speak?
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't. You know, all I know is I don't know, but I'd like to be able to get that information. How
Okay.
fast does it really take?
All right. We'll find out and let you know, and we'll notify. We'll post something on the website and social media about the vacancy as well.
And town meeting is at 7 o'clock. So are we going to post a meeting maybe at 6:30? We never mentioned that.
A selectmen's meeting, I mean.
Yeah, selectmen's
Yeah, we
meeting.
should do that. Yeah.
Look, just in case we
Yeah.
need to do something, and if we don't, we don't, we don't, we do.
Mhm.
Okay. And where would we post that? Here or over there?
Over There.
No, yeah.
Oh, here?
Here and then just walk over?
Okay.
Well, I mean, where are you gonna hold the meeting?
That's what I mean. Generally, we've always done it over there.
We've done it over there,
You had to
yeah.
vote on
So
anything?
you said post.
Oh, no.
Okay, we would
held the meeting.
Hold the meeting in the annex,
Yeah.
okay. Next item, review of the Bridge Street speed report from the DPW director. And so, just a little background, from a memo from the Director of Public Works to Angus, the town has been contacted by residents of Bridge Street expressing their concerns about the current vehicle speeds observed on their street. The main focus is the section of the roadway posted for 40 miles per hour, and some residents there believe this speed is unsafe and causes excessive noise. There is currently a Mass DOT permit special speed regulation number 6062 that established a 40 miles per hour speed limit on the majority of the roadway except where the roadway approaches Main Street and the Rocks Village Bridge, where the speeds are reduced to 25. So, the study over several sections of the road, both northbound and southbound, came up with average speeds and a mean speed for this. And from that, there is Wayne has recommended that we petition Mass DOT to permit Bridge Street in the section covered in the Mass DOT special permit speed regulation with the recommendation that we try to reduce it to 35 miles per hour. So,
Do we need a vote for that? Is it Wayne, or is this more of an informational thing and a discussion?
I would look to a vote, because at that point, we would submit it to the state as a request on behalf of the
I
board.
would make a motion that we take the recommendations of the DPW director and go for this speed change.
Second.
Further discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, we have a similar situation on Church Street, a long, straight street, some pretty good hill on there. And the existing speeds, I won't repeat the rules there, but the existing posted speed limits range from 25 to 45 and varies in the direction of travel. And so, again, extensive speed and directional orientation was collected at several times during the day on this, and the recommendation is that we become more uniform in our speed limit on this particular area and request a 25 mile per hour zones at each of the approaches to Main Street and Bridge Street for a distance of 500 feet, and the remaining section between those two zones be posted for 35 miles per hour. Again, I would go with the recommendations of the DPW director, request that we petition Mass DOT to do this.
So moved.
Further discussion?
Needs to be second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job on that. And that's been something that those residents have been,
That's good, yeah.
yeah. Let's thank Wayne for that. Thank you.
I like it makes an amazing bell curve in
Mm.
the speed limit.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
There's a couple of outliers, but it's amazingly perfect bell shape. Everyone got a C+.
I'll tell you, I've been learning a lot working with Wayne on what it takes to get these things done. And you may, as you'll know, we've got Chase Street is underway as well, under review. And so you may know, you'll recall the police had done a bunch of gathered a bunch of speed data, and that was sent into the DOT. And I just learned from Wayne about 2 weeks ago that got kicked back because it's not. They didn't accept the data as valid. So Wayne is recreating the data. And the reason is because when people see a cruiser, it affects their, so
They slow down.
yeah, so there's
So
a
it's
lot.
not a real speed.
Yeah, so we're fortunate to have Wayne on staff because he can do this stuff in-house, which normally we would be contracting with a traffic engineer to do. So
Terrific.
he's done really good work here. And I should have said this up front. Chief Durand has reviewed and agrees with both of these recommendations.
Oh, okay.
So. I know that back we had sent in information on Church Street back in June, and at that time we were told about 90 days before we'd hear back, and it was about 90 days before we heard back that the data was flawed. So it's it can take a little while.
Update on the CPC recommendation regarding proposed article and funding structure for the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building.
So when you last took this up, the CPC had continued their consideration but not yet voted their recommendation. So we put this on the agenda knowing that they were scheduled to vote last week. And so they did vote. It was unanimous among those present. One member was absent, so I believe it was a 6-0 vote to recommend the CPC, the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Project. And the funding balance that they recommended was substantially similar to what had come out of the Board of Selectmen, but a little bit different because the balance in the Historic Resources Reserve was a little bit less than the initial estimate. So they're proposing of the $250 up front, that $141 roughly come out of Historic Resources Reserve, with about $109 from undesignated fund balance. You have the specific numbers in front of you, with the remaining $1.25 million to be authorized as borrowing. So
Over
if
20 years.
Over 20 years, yeah. So if the
2.5
board is in agreement with that, I would look to the board to revise your motion, because your motion back a couple of weeks ago had referred to 150 out of historic, 100 out of undesignated. And just to ensure there's no discrepancy on the record, I think it would be good if you agree.
So, I'd like to make a motion that the funding for this article will be 141 out of historic, 109 out of undesignated of the CPC funds, and then 1.25 million to be borrowed on a 20-year note at 2.5%.
Oh,
2 point.
that's what we're assuming it'll be.
Yeah.
I'll second that, but I do have a question.
Perhaps since we've got the specific, I know I used summary numbers in my verbal presentation, but if we could
Use the
just
exact number.
confirm that
Yeah.
we're talking about the exact numbers that are on the.
I just wanted to add this, that because we're also using not very much, but again, it depends. We have to make sure that we do these in the correct order, because if we do take the money out of the historic for the commemoration, the steel commemoration, that's coming out of historic too. So we have to make sure that they come out in the.
We need to leave $600 in there for.
We need the 600 to be left in
That's
there.
been accounted for.
Yeah.
in the
So
numbers.
so this
Can I
so the
rescind
one
my-
the
can I rescind my
141
motion?
the 141.7 is pre or post these?
Post.
Okay.
I'm going to rescind my
No,
motion.
no.
Oh, no, the 141.7 is-
141.1 is what's left if
141.1
we,
is what's
if we
left.
take the
That's right.
600 out now, ahead of time.
Okay.
I'm going to rescind my motion because I don't want the 2.5 in there either, just in case it's something different. I don't want it to be stuck to that 2.
You're confusing me.
Percentage.
Oh, the percentage,
Yeah, I
okay.
don't want that in there. That was,
Okay.
That was, I don't want that in there. I want to be able to have.
It could be lower, who knows,
Exactly.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
where are the exact numbers?
It's page 41 of
41.
So the
So
numbers.
actually, these are correct if we take the 600 out ahead of time, yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else coming out of that? I'm trying to think, no.
No.
Okay. And
That
doesn't
account for fiscal year 20 collections,
Correct.
which will add to it.
right, what about the housing project thing, is that coming out first or no? Will that be taking anything out of undesignated?
Yeah, it will be coming out of both housing and.
Yeah, but we have
and-
$1.6
yeah.
million in undesignated.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the bulk. That's where the bulk of the 2.4 million is.
So Glenn, do you want to redo your motion? Or you want me to
Why don't you?
amend it? Okay.
No,
so,
I rescinded my motion. So
okay. So I
vote to rescind it.
okay. A second rescinding. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay. So I would make a motion to fund to change the numbers that we used previously for funding the $250,000 initial payment out of existing CPA funds to $141,700 from funds designated for historic.
No,
No.
141.1.
1.33. It's on 41.
Okay, that's where I was. That's why I was okay.
41.
And then 108,899.67.
Okay, $141,100.33
Yes.
from historic resources reserve and $108,899.67 from undesignated fund
Second.
balance.
Oh, and 1 point, and the rest 1.2
Right, and then 1.25 million
to be bonded.
will be bonded.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Presentation of the FY 20 tax recap. An estimated tax rate based on different levels of potential free cash.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is the recap model, which we used last fall and again this fall to, it's basically the same thing as the recap. It's not exactly the same, but it's substantially identical. And basically you plug in all of your variables in terms of property values, new growth, your approved budget, any other warrant articles, or other actions of town meeting that affect spending. You put that all together, and this is an instrument. It's an editable Excel workbook provided by DOR, which is basically a dummy version of the recap. And the key variable that I'd like you to focus on is the amount of free cash that's appropriated. And so that's on page 49 of your packet. And it's about 3/4 of the way down the page. You'll see free cash appropriated on or after July 1st. And that's under the heading Other Revenue Sources Appropriated Specifically to Reduce the Tax Rate. So that's not appropriating free cash for a specific expenditure. That's simply appropriating free cash to reduce the tax rate. So this model that you have in front of you shows a transfer of $240,000. Which would result in a level tax rate of $14.57. The warrant article would authorize the transfer of up to $400,000. And so I wanted to talk over with the board tonight what that would mean if you went to a different number for the actual motion on the floor of town meeting and how that would affect the estimated tax rate. So one thing that happened last year that we didn't want to fall into the same trap is last year we had the tax rate was basically identical. It went up just 1 penny.
Right.
But people's actual tax impact went up more substantially because their assessed values changed. And so when we put the budget together last spring, if you go back to the FinCom booklet from last April, it basically said, based on the approved budget, that it was designed in such a way that the actual tax impact would be basically the same as their change in property values. That's the key variable that you don't know in the spring. You just don't know what the values will be. So with if $240,000 is transferred, we'd have an estimated tax rate of $14.57, the same as we have this year. But the assessed values, these are not certified numbers, but these are the numbers that were submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Where's that, Angus?
It's actually on page 46, the top left. You see the breakdown of residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. So that 978, 329, 520, 521. So those numbers aren't certified, but that's what had been estimated by assessing. So that translates to about a 3.3% increase in valuation from FY19 to FY20. So if you,
Okay, that was gonna be my question.
yeah, so if you
3
keep
point what?
3.3%.
Thank you.
So if you keep the same tax rate, the estimated tax impact would be about 3.3%, which is more than what we aimed for. The goal coming into the budget season was about 2%. So if we transfer free cash, let me back up. So that 3.3% increase would be if your values went up 3.3%. So in the aggregate, the total values that assessing has come up with is about a 3.3% increase.
But that's including new growth.
No, that is not.
But it's including last year's new growth.
That's now part of the levy. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, to Glenn's
stuff down.
yeah. So that's going to apply unevenly across town.
Some went up more than 3.3. Some didn't go up at all. Some might have reduced.
Exactly.
Hypothetically.
That's exactly right. So.
But that's the
Right,
roll of the
that's the nature
dice.
of things.
Yeah.
So just
You
in
put an
terms of
addition on, or you do your house over, it's going to cost more money. I mean,
Mhm.
that's implied that
Right.
your taxes, your value is going to go up.
so if your let's see, if your values went up by 3.3%, your taxes would go up by about 3.3% with the same tax rate. If instead of transferring $240,000 from free cash, the town transferred the full $400,000 that the warrant article would authorize, that would have the effect, if somebody's property values stayed the same from 19 to 20, their actual tax bill would go down by about 1%. If their tax, so I ran three scenarios. So the second is if you have the same value with a lower tax rate, because we could get the tax rate down to about 1442 with 400,000. So the second scenario is the same value, a lower rate would be a reduction of the actual tax bill.
Yeah,
about
but Angus,
1%.
but on average, it isn't the same value. On average, it went up 3.
And so that's the third scenario.
On average, it went up 3%.
And so that's the third scenario, is the increased value, the 3.3% increase with the lower rate. And that would be an estimated increase of about 2.2%.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Me too.
So,
Okay, so we all like that, and I think taxpayers would want even more, but understandably that would be better. But then next year we're starting $400,000 in the hole.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, once you,
Because we're using free cash, which I have no problem with.
Mhm.
I have no problem with it, but we just have to make sure we understand that.
Mm.
That
Wait
now.
a minute. I got beaten up because I wanted to keep free cash up, and then the FinCom and everyone else on the Board of Selectmen wanted to lower free cash, and now we have the opportunity to do so.
I'm agreeing with
Oh,
you.
you are? Let's
Oh
do
no,
it.
no,
Yeah.
no! I want to do it,
Oh,
but I just want to make sure we understand when we're starting to budget next year,
Mhm.
right?
That the basis is lower.
You know that we've theoretically used $400,000 out of free cash to reduce the DAC rate to put it into our quote unquote operating budget,
but we haven't.
to pay our operating budget,
Yes.
The levy,
which I have no problem with that.
But the levy is still there. We haven't.
Just because we can tax people, we shouldn't.
I know. All I'm saying is though that by doing this, we're not affecting
The levy limit.
the ability to do so next year. Because this is coming out of.
No, but then all of a sudden, I think we need to have some type of understanding, but which we can't foresee in a crystal ball. But we want to have this as a practice to keep the free cash.
I understand.
We
don't
can't get
wanna
addicted to it.
to this.
I agree, but when we can, we should.
That's
And
the way I
people
look at
and
it.
people should understand that when we can, we should give them as much relief as possible. But with the understanding is some years we might not be able to, and it might increase.
Mhm.
Give them their money back.
Give them the information And with the
Mhm.
realization that, okay, it might not happen
Yeah.
next year.
Rather than keeping it for a rainy day, give it back to them and let them use their own money, and then, but with the understanding that we might ask for that back. Right? So I'd make a motion that the amount stay at $400,000.
Second. Discussion? Rick?
No, I think I'm good with it, of the alternatives.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That keeps us in line kind of how much we wanted to. See, everybody always gets messed up. Oh, we're keeping the tax rate at the same or we're decreasing it. But that doesn't mean your taxes aren't going to go up, because there's
Right.
another factor in there is your valuation.
Right.
So we're
Yeah.
kind of keeping it the way we wanted to when we started the budget season, of saying, hey, we only want to try to increase this by 2% this year.
And
That's
we-
exactly right,
and
yeah.
We can't predict what the valuations are going to be. We don't know.
No, it's good that they're going up.
Yeah.
And they're going to go
Although-
up, they're going to go up more too when that high school land, when it gets broken and starts building, and get even more when it gets built.
You're obviously, Archie, you're 100% correct that we have no way of knowing what's going to happen with valuations. However, I just wanted to point out this little factoid. I thought it was kind of interesting. Going into the budget season last winter, we were, working with certain assumptions in terms of what might happen with assessed values and new growth, and I'd used the average of the last 5 years of increase in value, which was 32.4 million, and the actual was 31.3. So pretty darn close in terms of our
Good.
model. So I think with the, we wanted to end up at about 2%, and I think with the 400,000, that's where we'll be.
Has there,
We're going to,
I was just going to say, has there been any, has,
the
we know if
Legion.
there's been a lot of, how's the building permit numbers been?
Well, behind the Legion is just one of them.
Versus, it seems like there's a lot of building going on.
Yeah, they definitely seem like there's
Yeah.
more going on right
There's
now.
more land, yeah. Obviously behind the Legion, and then you see a lot
But there's
single-family
some
houses.
individual
Yeah.
houses that we
Yeah.
haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
So the estimated new growth figure is on page 47, about midway down, is 143,338 is what we're estimating for new growth,
Which will apply to
No, but that's
2019.
19.
well, no, okay, no, it's actually 20.
Okay.
Some of the numbers in the header, so this is what you get with the state work, and this is confusing. So the Excel model,
Mhm.
a lot of these cells are frozen and I can't edit them.
Oh, okay.
And so they haven't updated the model to the current year. It still works because it's the same form. No, it drove me nuts as well, because the first thing you see when you look at it, says right at the top FY19, and it's actually FY20.
Huh.
So, yeah, I forgot to explain that because
I like the
It-
code
it-
on top of that. It's like
Yeah.
79 letters in a row.
I know.
oh, that's sometimes when you convert to PDF, it
Oh, okay.
translates to gobbledygook. So
Okay, so this is
this is
2020.
for 2020, and so all of these numbers down the left you need to move ahead one. And
One
I
year,
talked to
yeah.
DOR about could they get us a model that's
So the one
got the right year, but-
I said, sure, we'll get it to you next
So
year.
far.
110,872 is the actual.
110,872 was the actual FY19.
Okay.
Yep, that's
How
correct.
did that compare with the prediction?
For FY19,
Yeah.
I don't know what was predicted. I can tell you that for the estimated FY20 new growth of 143,338 was less than what my model had estimated, where we'd taken the average of the prior 5 years, which was 164. And so it's a little lower than that. But when you look at the last 10 years of trends, there was really 1 year, FY17, where it was such a huge increase in new growth. That kind of skewed the numbers. I thought the
Sullivan's
164 was a good number because we knew it was a reval year. So sometimes you see a more significant increase, but I think what happened is I think they captured a lot of that new growth in the FY19 number, as well as the overall valuation. You'll remember was a very significant increase. It was actually this is important. So the increase in percentage in total valuation townwide from FY18 to FY19 was 5.8%. That's a big number. So you can remember last fall when there was all that concern about taxes, it was the 5.8%. So this year, 3.3% is more in line with what you would expect. And I think with the free cash transfer, that'll even further take the edge off.
Good. That 5.8% represented updated assessments that are reflecting market values, or
and it tends to, the way it's been described to us is tends to lag actual sales by about 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, there's a
which is always hard for the homeowners because they see what's being sold now, then they get the assessed value, but it's really from 2 years prior, and it's hard to. We need to do assessors need to educate so people really understand where it's coming from. The next one.
Article I, review of the motions for the special town meeting.
We're going to go through everyone, or are we just?
I don't think we need to do that.
I looked at them, read them. Mike, they passed you on muster, obviously.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any particular
just
comments?
Article 2, it should be 11,500 instead of 11,000.
Okay.
So that was some.
Okay.
On the posting of it, we posted it, where we always post them. It said 7 o'clock, not 7:30, correct? Thank you.
Did it say 7:30 somewhere else?
On the town website.
I sent
It did?
and ironically,
But a couple weeks ago. So in my head, I've always been meaning to ask that question to make sure we posted it properly and it didn't slip through. That's it. I'm not saying that anything. Chester, I'm just. I always wanted to ask that question. I never did until I just remembered it right then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ironically, I made that error. I was showing Jenny how to post something to news and announcements on the website, showing her how easy it is, and I think I wasn't. I was a little distracted. Like, oh, look how easy this is. I set it out within minutes. It was like, oh, and so I had to post a clarification that it's 7, not 7:30. So. But in all of the official places, it was posted correctly.
Any other number changes, Angus?
Nope.
So how do you want to do this? We'll just go from alphabetical order 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, where it applies to us.
Mike's been working with the different proponents to make sure that for the non-selectmen articles.
Well, I meant ours. We don't. Anybody want to make a motion on any of them? Anybody on ours, or we just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3?
I never care.
Just sign it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't care.
Use darts.
I just never want to do this.
You'll have them.
The septic revolving account, I don't do that one.
What?
I don't do the septic revolving account.
It's in his.
That's
I know. It's in his.
Isn't that done?
He's just giving you a heads up for spring. It's in his contract. He doesn't do it. Okay.
The conservation restriction for the Drake's Landing. So I guess I need a little help on this. So where do we stand on this? It's already been approved by the state and now it's coming back to us. What's going on?
Obviously, this is on private property. This was part of the special permit that was part of the planning board. So they've offered to dedicate a portion of their private property to conservation restriction. So essentially, what the process would be is that that would, go obviously get approved by the conservation commission, by obviously the developer, by this board, and by the executive office in Boston. So
The same one that,
And so it's the Energy Environmental Affairs. So it looks like they have, it says draft restriction approved by them, I guess.
I mean, yes, so the office, yes.
Yeah, so
So the way it works now is.
so it's come back to us.
Yeah, conservation, the owner would sign it, the conservation commission would sign it, then it comes over here, the board of selectmen has to sign it, and then it goes to the boss, and
okay, but so why is it here if none of the other ones have signed it first? That's my point.
it's, I would say you not to sign it until you get the other one, but now vote to basically assign it when it's executed by the other parties. So you have a vote.
But they,
to assign it.
and no other party can change it other than just the intent of it, other than just like dot i's and cross t's and stuff like that.
Typos or something like that.
That's it. I just don't want to sign something before somebody else.
You're not asking you to sign it, you're gonna sign it after they've already signed it.
Oh,
Okay.
So we get a last look just to
But
make
see,
sure
my
nobody's,
question,
yeah.
Mike, is it says approved, so approved by, is approved by the
Whom?
state, or who wrote that?
By that
document
agency.
that says approved?
I believe that that's from the state, that basically they approved this draft.
Just like the
I
ones
think
that,
that's
that
Melissa,
from,
it's an
the,
email from Melissa Robbins
That's
that has that.
Yeah,
That's the
so it's
email
approved by
you're
that,
referring to, or-
Executive Office of
Or-
Energy and Environmental Affairs.
So now it's back to us.
page 57.
But I think what your action tonight should be to simply vote to approve to sign it, and then when the other things are signed.
Okay.
You don't have to have a meeting, you can just come in and sign
Gotcha.
it.
As long as nobody changes.
So,
That's it.
so,
That's my.
so
I
we
hate
need,
to
so we need a
approve-
motion at
I
this
hate to
point.
approve to sign something that we're sending off to other people to come back.
Basically, you're not gonna sign something that has already been signed.
Correct.
Except for the executive office, they're the last people to sign.
Yeah, and everybody, the other people have. I want to make sure they have an understanding that they can't change anything. It can't be changed.
Okay.
Yeah, well, they would get the same cover
Right.
that
So I
we,
make a
that we
motion-
received
We
from
get
the
to
state.
speak last.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. I'm trying to hold that bullet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't even know what the motion is.
Is this a motion to approve the signing of the conservation restriction upon the execution by the other parties?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mike. I was kind of confused about that one myself.
We have meeting minutes, I had no, actually, I did have one. One issue on the date of, on page 88.
Thank you for numbering them, by the way.
Very
That
well.
does help.
It does help.
It makes it so much easier.
No, reading it again, now I'm actually.
What were you looking at?
I'm actually okay with it after I read it again. Okay, it was about the CPC, article, the card post, and it seems okay.
So let's
But
make a
where we
motion.
just corrected the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of September 3rd and September 23rd.
Second
Second.
that.
Did you say the 3rd or the 30th?
30th and 23rd.
Okay, great.
Now you have a problem with the 30th
I
tonight.
guess so, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
So I'm just curious, stepping back one, did everybody read all 7 pages of the conservation restriction description?
Yeah,
Did you follow that? Did you follow that point to
I
point?
didn't watch the full first half of the Patriots game because I was reading everything.
I just looked at the map.
You might want to give it to him.
Angus, we want to talk about the timeline for the FY21 budget.
So I met with Archie last week to go over this agenda, and we agreed we'd like to get on the November 12th Selectmen meeting, so the next agenda, basically the board's review and discussion of policy direction, kind of budget message to be sent out to department heads and boards, committees, commissions as they prepare their budgets to submit to me. So that would be a couple of weeks ahead of last year, and I'd like to pull the overall process back to allow basically more time for the selectmen to chew on the draft budget I prepare before that draft is submitted to FinCom. So that's kind of a takeaway from the prior budget cycle. So I don't have an updated budget schedule, but I will have that for the next meeting. And so,
Angus, so one thing you had in sort of in the memo, and I don't feel that I'm just speaking for myself, but I don't feel that the selectmen have to vet everything with each department head or whatever. You're going to be doing that, and then the FinCom does that at their discretion. I think it is overkill for for us to have to talk to every single department head if there's some particular item that's a major sticking point. But you're gonna be preparing the budget after having gotten your recommendations from people, and you're gonna have done that. So I don't think that we necessarily have to
I would agree with that.
duplicate that.
Last year it was kind of, nobody really knew, remember? It was kind of like, because we did it
You see
before,
what I
if it
mean?
was your
Yeah.
that whole
budget.
whose budget is
Yeah,
that discussion.
so I think we should do it the right way.
Yeah.
Not that we did it the wrong way last year, but I would agree with Archie's
Well, and I think
sentiments.
that I definitely feel like, Archie, you used the term sticking point. I think you're exactly right. I need to, it's incumbent on me to make sure the board is aware of different,
There's something
before it's
ahead of
formally
time, this
presented
one
in the
might
proposed budget.
might be a problem, then
Well,
we get
right.
informed about it.
And I definitely think my antenna are more finely attuned to this community than they were a year ago at this time. So there were some things that, you didn't learn about till a little later than you should have. So I think it's going to be better this year, partly because I think everyone's, been around longer. And so I think that'll work out well. So, yeah, I think that's the right spirit. So not every line in my proposed budget, but for me to distill out those things that I think are, basically policy questions.
Okay, another question is how, and this goes towards the entire budget for everybody and the voters themselves. So now we've got a new chart of accounts. And the one thing that is that people are, this line item went up 17%. We put a hold on that because we want to know what's going on there. So how are we going to be able to, and how, especially how are the town meeting people going to be able to look at that and get transparency if we have new line items and new chart of accounts? So how's it going to work?
It should be seamless because even though the numbers have changed, the basic structure of the budget is the same. I think this year there might be some things that we could adjust. I mean, one of the trade-offs between kind of transparency and efficiency is the more number of budget line item breakdown you have. Obviously, that's more transparent in terms of where the money's going. The counterpoint to that is that if you cut things,
that's what you like, right?
Well, I do.
Yeah.
But what governs in terms of on an operational basis in terms of money that's available is what was in the line that the town meeting approved. So if town meeting approved, for instance, the DPW budget's a more detailed budget. It's got, I think, 16 or 17 sub-lines with the DPW. So is something a town building operating expense or is something a town building improvement? Those are two different lines. And there's times over the course of the year that, the town accountant will, make sure things are well, through all the warrants, making sure things are posted to the right line. The more specificity you have in what's actually part of what town meeting votes, the less flexibility you have on, within those lines. So I think one thing that the former town accountant and I did, which I think worked well this past budget cycle, was in the FinCom meetings, we broke out more detail. So take, for example, the assessor's budget. Their budget that town meeting views is basically 3 lines. It might be 4, but it's 3 or 4 lines. In what was presented to FinCom, we broke that down a lot more. So it wasn't just expenses were all aggregated in one big bucket. For instance, they have some pretty significant contracts with Patriot Properties or with MVPC. And so we broke out contracted services as a separate line. And then we had training and travel as a separate line. So we broke out those expenses to a finer grain of detail. It was very helpful for the FinCom, but then for the town meeting budget, we rolled that all up into more of an aggregated line. So I think, for the first budget, I think that was a good compromise because it provided the transparency without totally tying the hands of kind of the implementation.
I guess the question is also, I don't know how many we had before. Is it like 3 of? There's a lot of line items. So are we going to have more line items to vote on, or fewer, or the same?
That would be a good thing to review in the policy direction 2 weeks from now.
Same amount of line items, but you might have subsets of those line items. Might have just more transparency or not. I don't know where you're going to go with it, but
If they're there, people are going to vote on them.
So for example, with the chart of accounts, you've got as you know, it's a multi-digit kind of coded number, and so you could have something that's a 5400 line is an expense line, and it could have a suffix. And so one suffix could be training and travel, one suffix could be supplies, one suffix could be...
But they're only voting on that one line.
Exactly. But that allows, and I like that because when you're coding the expenses in the AP warrant, you're putting in a finer degree of detail, which in the first year won't matter a whole lot, but after 3 or 4 years, you'll have trends that will really allow you not only to really see what's going toward training and travel each year, rather than a bigger expense line, which isn't that helpful, but also it'll help you look across the organization to say, are we giving comparable training opportunities across the organization? So I think that's where the former accountant and I were trying to go, and I think with Stephanie starting Monday, that's something I'll spend a lot of time talking with her about. And I think
for the finance office, it's great, but I don't think we want twice as many line items in the next town meeting.
I totally agree.
Baby steps.
Yeah. No, I think
I think you did by breaking it down for the FinCom,
right,
but then putting it back in the aggregate for the town.
Right.
Yeah,
so they were able to.
I don't think at town meeting we want to be deciding how many pencils.
Right.
No, and who's traveling and why are you traveling here, and you really need.
But like you give an example, DPW might have 15 line items, and the fire department, which is a pretty substantial budget in and of itself, might only have 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they have training, and they have, do we want to try and make it comparable so that people see that okay, there's this particular. I'm just asking rhetorical questions, but there in a lot of the departments just have expenses, but others are significantly more detailed. So, do we want to be comparing the departments completely on an equal basis, or keep it the way it was in the past, where open space committee might just have one line item, and so it would be stupid to have 7 line items for open space committee.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, technically there might, if they broke it down, there might be little, they might fall into different categories. So I don't know.
we
Yeah.
should all think
Well,
about.
something we
Yeah,
talk,
yeah,
we
it-
think
it-
about
it-
talking about on the 12th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like, probably for some departments, there'll be a lot more transparency if we can break certain things up more, but in other departments, maybe
It's
that,
overkill.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and I mean, transparency is important, but, you need to,
If it's only $400, you don't
right,
really care if $11.50
right.
went to postage or
right,
something. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but then one whole line item gets, then one whole line items on something else where we're trying to be more transparent could get a hold on and then reduced because that person doesn't think that XYZ, that person really doesn't have a good understanding about, but just sees that breakdown, that suffix.
Museum tickets are definitely a special one.
I think it's a great discussion on the 12th. Now, I have a couple of questions. Are you done with yours?
Yes.
I think we beat that thing to the death. You say, how do you want us to come prepared for the 12th? You're saying that we want to have, early on in this, I don't know if you want to call it presentation, but
But you know,
you're-
like, Glenn, do we want to have a, just our overall philosophy of, do we want to have a lot of capital expenditures?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah, how are we, yeah.
That kind of thing.
So that's all,
Philosophical.
yeah, you don't want us to come with numbers and how we think departments, and do we want to say?
No.
We want a philosophy is we're going to give raises, we're not going to give raises, we're going to do this, that, this.
You know what might be good
Yeah.
is
Okay.
what we could do is put together the last couple of years of policy direction, so you have that as an example of what
Okay.
we're
That's fine.
shooting for, and then we could send that out to you. Ought to be able to get that out to you tomorrow, and then if each of you individually have any suggestions, if you send them our way, and
I understand now, but
but that'll be good.
I assume that, but I just wanted to make sure.
Also,
We're not going to get too far into the weeds. This is going to be more of a, a discussion, right? Or
Yes.
Are you asking us to give you some real concrete direction and stick to it?
No, it's kind of broad policy framework.
You get it. Thank you. I'm done with it. Thank you.
Okay, the next item, item M, is just informational update. Met with Larry Tereso for Maya last week, and he gave us is a very modest increase on the MedX retirement health insurance supplement. It's just a monthly increase of $4. That's a 50-50 split between the retiree and the town. So the actual impact would be less than $2 per person per month. So that's good. But the part of why I wanted this on the agenda is my office in the process of communicating that to retirees to let them know. But also in the course of that meeting, he gave me a recommendation for FY21 budgeting purposes. There's a preliminary number. We'll get the real number right around Valentine's Day, as we do every year. But he's recommending 7% increase in health insurance for FY21.
Not for retirees. This is
No, for the employees. So that's what I'll build in. What was it last year? Wow, I don't remember.
similar, I think it was.
I want to say it might have even been lower. He thinks it's going to be lower,
Okay.
but in terms of
Is that a good
giving,
number or a bad number? Why
Uh,
don't you just tell me that? That's what I'm looking for. Is that like 7% is always high?
it's more than Prop 2.5.
Yeah,
so
that's-
what
I
it
know
means
that.
is that basically
So
that
something else
level
has
of
to give.
increase squeezes out some other things that
Right.
can't increase as much. So
Can I ask a,
I think in the world we live in, it's we've seen worse. You've seen
Yeah.
double-digit
can
increases.
I ask so retirees are 50-50, but everybody else is 60-40 or 65-35?
Correct.
Thank you.
So he's confident we'll do better than that, but for initial budgeting, that's what I'll be building in until we get a real number in February.
Thank you.
All right,
The
next
food
item.
steamer.
Oh, yep, the food steamer. So the FinCom did favorably recommend that. So we're working with Greg Haddon on product selection, but we will be going forward with replacing the food steamer in the Page cafeteria. I think it does raise a bigger policy issue that we'll get into at a future meeting in terms of the language in the regional agreement relative to the language in the lease, and whether that $10,000 threshold is the right threshold. I explained to the committee that is the threshold, and to change that would be 3 towns and the school committee, so it's not something that changes easily, but they wanted to put that on the table for discussion.
We changed it here from 10 to 20
For our, right,
3 or 4 years ago. So
Yep.
I think it's something to think about.
yes, yeah, it is. There are definitely some issues that came out of this process that are well worth looking at really closely, including this distinction between equipment and and capital. That was I think a pretty interesting discussion. I think it was the right outcome they arrived at. But
Like what would you say about, just as a for instance, what would you say about a server and network computers that could be easily over 10 grand? It would, how do you figure
And
that
I
out?
think during the discussion, everybody at the table seemed to think that, infrastructure, the example that was used at the meeting was one of these LED projectors, which they can definitely run into the 5 figures. That was discussed as an example of something that would be clearly kind of related to the educational mission of Pentucket, something that they would be responsible for. But based on the literal language in the documents, that's something that a bunch of people can sit around and say, yeah, we all agree with that. But in terms of the words on the page, it doesn't really sync up. So one of the FinCom members raised the concern of, at some point in the future, what if Pentucket presented us, something like that? And we'd say, no, that was never the intent. But the point is, there's some distance between the words on the page and what everybody kind of agrees is a reasonable interpretation. So I do think we'd like to get those.
We just
Is-
changed, we
I
just
guess-
changed it
Documents.
too last spring.
I guess there's
Yeah, we did.
there's
Yeah.
nothing in the words on the page that says anything about which entity, whether it was the town or the district, was the original acquirer of the piece of equipment. For instance, this steamer was originally a town property, and so maybe there's more rationale. But something like a computer or a projector would always be acquired by the district. So it seems like that'd be a pretty weak argument to come proposing that the
I
district
think
had
it
bought-
would be.
Yeah.
I think it was used as like a
Yeah,
hypothetical
yeah,
that
yeah.
probably wouldn't happen in real life, but just to illustrate that, you were at the meeting, Rick, and so you heard one of the FinCom members said, he was highly critical of the lease, saying that terms are used that are not anywhere defined.
Right.
And I think that was a really valid
Yeah.
point. But I did speak with school administration, and I'm told it took 30 years to get a lease in place in the first place. So I've
And
cautioned-
we had
to put
we
that.
Yeah.
we had a lease, and there were no other leases around
The other
either.
towns, they had 0.
Mhm.
We had one for years before they even put one in place. But that's a good thing, and baby steps on that. So let's move forward, and we do that.
Let's not forget about it.
Yeah, because you only need those terms when when everybody's working together in the sandbox. Well, you don't need those terms.
Right.
But when things change, and then that's when you really need them to protect the town. Okay. Active project updates. It has to be small. I'm told you do nothing. Kidding.
So, I don't really have anything. I put this on not knowing what I would have for tonight, and I had a family issue come up today, so I lost half the day, so I'm not as, I don't really have anything specific. I will say that, obviously with Jenny starting last Monday and Stephanie starting this coming Monday, the whole personnel kind of integration and training, getting everyone, kind of hardwired into who's doing what is, I think it's off to a great start, but there's a lot of time that goes into that, and so that's been a major focus in my office, is And I think that's.
Will everybody be attending town meeting?
Yes, yep,
Definitely too.
yep.
We can introduce them and we can ask them pointed questions. And
Put you on the spot.
about your tweets.
Yes.
She watched a couple of our meetings, and one was when I asked Stephanie about the tweets. So she was ready in case when I walked in and I asked her some goofy question. She goes, I've already watched the meeting. I know you. Great. Future agenda items? Are we at that?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Go.
Well, I thought Nevy was looking for his money for that road. Did we vote that yet?
We did.
We did. Oh, my word. Okay. Sorry. I walk into the basement. I don't even know if this is a future, and I just don't want to step on anybody's toes because you and I have had this conversation about I don't need to go through you all the time. Maybe just talk to Wayne or whomever I need to do. I don't because I always like to go to you, so I'm not like going to the thing. I think it would be beneficial for maybe Wayne to have a meeting with Teresa, Council on Aging, and get a good understanding of what needs that basement can fulfill, and if we have to have any construction or things like that, and start working on something or a plan to be able to utilize that more than what they're doing. And that's it. I don't know if I should just talk to Wayne and have her meet with him, or you want to take
That's,
care?
I believe that's, you may have information I don't have, but I believe
don't have
that's
any.
Underway. Because there's a number of dynamics down there.
I just
with
walk through
between
it when I come in.
Yep.
I park over there.
Yep.
And I just see everything in that room that got flooded. There's still the floor's not down.
Yes,
But I'm not
right,
saying that it should be
right,
down.
right,
But
right.
then I remember there was a police station down there. You know what I mean? So there are maybe they always say they need some more space or maybe some more storage. Use something out of there and be able to utilize that space for them. I don't know.
between the food pantry and the Board of Health storage of things, there's some dynamics that where they have moved some things. For instance, the food pantry was moved from what used to be the jail cell into.
They did a nice job at that.
Yeah. So it's a much better space now. So there's some things that it's kind of a work in progress, but it's definitely changing and it's going to continue to change. So we've got Wayne coming to the meeting in a couple of weeks on a different topic, and
I don't need.
but it'd be.
I don't need to talk to him about it. It's
Well, but just to make everyone aware, because I think it reflects some suggestions Teresa had made, and
Okay.
so I think that's there's some good things happening down there in the basement.
Okay.
So another thing maybe for future, we talked about electric vehicle charging stations, and I sat on a meeting last Thursday, with Angus and Mike and a couple of people from National Grid regarding a different issue, regarding a billing issue, and had the opportunity though to ask one of the people there who had identified himself as the one responsible for working with our particular community about electrical vehicle charging stations and what programs National Grid might have. And since then have had email dialogue with a couple of other people that he connected me with. And so Angus, I haven't forwarded that all to you yet, but I'll do that. And so we may want to have a conversation that involves Wayne as well, and figure out how to move it forward. But bottom line is that National Grid has a program now. It's I think the funding was the Volkswagen diesel fiasco settlement money, but there's considerable money available through National Grid to fund electric vehicle charging stations.
Let's do it.
So we have to figure out how to make that all work, and it may not be as simple as it looks at face value initially, but because things never are. But hopefully we can make that work and can have multiple vehicle charging stations installed at appropriate locations at little or no cost.
Nice. Now
Hopefully.
we just need to start a program where we can, our town cars, now that they're getting more
Yep.
So our pickup, I don't know how functional it would be, but.
Yeah, no, definitely when the appropriate vehicles are available, we should look pretty hard at them.
Mhm. Make a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
We had some, as Glenn will recall, we spent a long time getting the signs on the right position on Whetstone Street, on
Yeah,
the corner there.
too much.
Yeah, and there's been some discussion that, some reports that some complaints that now they're vehicle parking, and so we have to see if the signs are still, if the signs been moved, or it's been taken down, or what's going on with that.
I would think it would be a Wayne thing and then an enforcement thing with the police.
I mean, Angus, there should be, we'd have to look back. We made specific
Yeah, very specific.
measurements of exactly where the signs would go and where other vehicles could not be allowed to park in order to allow the ladder truck to make it around the corner. And
I would start at the DPW office. Maybe I don't know if Gary's ever walking around. I know we call him every once in a while, but rather than going through minutes, that might be the best place to start to get the exact dimensions, because.
But yeah, there shouldn't be an issue, because I thought we corrected that.
Well, it might be an enforcement issue.
Yeah.
We need to send the police down there.
And the other thing is, just not on necessarily the next meeting, but just everyone keep in the back of the mind, we said we were going to come up with some policy on the parade. So, and we were going to do it by the end of the year. So we have to we have to think about that, and because it's going to be holiday time, and pretty soon January will be here, because
we need to have a discussion. I think I don't know, promise is the wrong word, but we mentioned that we would have some type of discussion within ourselves and then come up with some type of draft that we probably, a hard draft, if that makes any sense. So people get a good understanding of what we're going to do. So there could be a comment period, not that we would change that draft, but at least give the town, since it is their parade, a chance to comment, and then we would then take a vote.
Okay.
I think that's what we said. I could be totally wrong.
So if possible, I would say let's.
Sooner than better, because then we're starting to get into budget season.
That's why I'm saying it. Yeah. So
the 12th. How's the 12th look?
If we can each have some thoughts that we can then compile into one document, that's what we should do.
Mike's going to be the initial.
I have
Mike's going to be
I have
the
a
initial
draft
draft.
already.
You do? Okay.
Yes, that I can forward today. If you want.
Sure.
So that's a great starting point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Can we have it on the 12th then?
Yeah. Okay.
And if we have to continue to a subsequent meeting, at least we got it going.
Right. But but to Glenn's point, we did want to have something that we could put out, and then the public could comment on, and then before we formalized it. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second
Second.
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.